Over 50 million. This should be the furthest that something like this has ever been taken before. I might be wrong, but I don't think anyone has flipped further from 1 GP than to 50 million and actually made a series about it, or otherwise documented it in some way. If someone has and I've missed it, feel free to let me know in the comments though, I'd love to check that out. But as far as I know, from here on out it should technically be 100% unique content in a way. By the way, for anyone who is new, I'm Samaker or just Sam, and welcome to episode 4 of flipping from 1 coin to 1 billion. Before we get into this episode, I just want to make a quick announcement. As a few of you might know, I have an Iron Man which I've been playing on for quite a while now, and for the last couple months or so I've been preparing for my grind to 85 or 87 Slayer. I've had a lot of things that I wanted to get done before going for such a high Slayer level to make it as efficient as possible for the endgame goals that I have set for this account. So as you might have guessed at this point, when I finish preparing for my Slayer grind I am going to start a type of maining an Iron Man series, which is going to be a progression series where I show you how I move from mid-game to end-game content and eventually try to achieve all of the goals that I've set out for myself and this account. There is still a fair bit to do before the Slayer grind, so it'll probably be a couple of weeks or so before I start working on the first episode itself, but I am going to be streaming pretty much everything except for the tedious stuff like fishing on Twitch. If you want to check out the Twitch channel, maybe catch me live and see where I'm currently at, the link will be in the description. But enough about the Iron Man series, let's get into the flipping. Unless of course you haven't seen the previous episodes yet, in which case you can use the link in the description or click the little thing in the corner about now, pause and come back when you're up to speed with the episodes. Alright, now that everyone's on board, let's actually get into it. Sorry I kept you waiting. Then again, if you've been subscribed since any of the previous episodes, I've already been keeping you waiting for over a month. Alright, so the flipping. As you might expect, I started out the flipping of episode 4 flipping pretty similar things as I did towards the end of episode 3, with the exception of the forging rings. Soon I started testing some more stuff like coconuts though. When they didn't work out, I went over to broken and regular Karel's crossbows and phoenix necklaces. This combination of various jewelry and the Karel's crossbows, both completely deteriorated and regular, worked pretty well for me for quite a while. So I kept doing that for a few days and then I decided to give Sears rings another try. It went a whole lot better this time as they didn't crash to half their price right after I bought them. Feels kinda good to get back at the item that made you lose a bunch of cash. Either way, I more or less phased out the Karel's crossbows for the Sears rings as the crossbows were trading too slow at their price to be worthwhile when trying to push the margins a bit, and when not trying to push the margins a bit, the margins were just too small. I also managed to stock up on quite a few Sears rings at one time because I was able to buy a ton of them for pretty cheap, but they wouldn't sell for the price that I wanted. Eventually I had to stop buying and just try to get rid of them for a decent price. Whilst trying to sell the Sears rings and not buying any, thus leaving a spot for an offer open, I decided to both get rid of the coconuts I had left at the same time and try to find a bunch of new items. This time I decided to try obby shields, or bear with me, Toxket seal shields, brine sabers and Darok armor sets. These sets were not going well for me, but the shields and saber were both doing really well. The margins on the Darok set was really tight considering it was about 2 million. I kept trying to leave offers in overnight for just a tad outside of the margins, hoping they'd buy and sell, but even overnight I could hardly get a set through. So after a bit I completely abandoned those. I was probably a bit more stubborn than I should have been though. I should probably stop being so stubborn with items overall and just move on when something isn't working. Either way, brine sabers and the obby shields were doing great. Mostly the brine sabers though, as the obby shields kind of slowed down as someone else kept over and undercutting me and the margins shrunk, sadly. I also tried bucket helms and black demon masks. Bucket helms are another great example of me being stubborn because the item was hard trading, and on top of that someone else was cutting me off and shrinking the margins, which made it even worse. I kept trying them for a while, but eventually I abandoned those too. The black masks, whilst not terrific in terms of how fast I was able to turn them around, they had really good margins and were still worth doing at the time. The obby shields never were really bad despite getting cut by other people flipping, but I decided to get rid of them anyways to give room for all the new items that I wanted to try. Ensouled heads, lava dragon masks, all the demon masks and dragonstone jewelry charging scrolls. Basically, the only thing I kept doing at this point were the brine sabers, which by the way I'm probably still doing at the release of this episode, which is kind of dumb and even dumber to actually say, but I do like how them brine sabers really kept working well all the way through. I think I must have made at least 5 mil just off of flipping the brine sabers, if not more. GG those now. But aside from those lovely brine sabers, let's wrap up the other items really quick. All masks flip slowly. The lava dragon masks exceptionally slowly, I assume due to their rarity and high price. As you'll see in a bit, I really struggled to get rid of those towards the end of this episode. As for the old demon masks, I'm not quite sure what was going on with them, but I suspect that someone who might have been hoarding a bunch of them just dumped them all into the Grand Exchange and the price just stuck at that lower end where the person was selling them. But either way, I did get a few decent flips in before that, so I'm not so mad. The charged dragonstone jewelry scrolls dropped in price by about half, not long after I bought 5 mil worth of them, so I lost a bit of money on those. I probably should have taken a closer look at the RS by the exchange crafts before buying so many though. Some weird stuff has been going on with those scrolls. The ensouled heads are really a mixed and slightly confusing bag of items though. When doing a quick buy and sell to see the current margin, it was almost always tiny, but on the dragon heads for example, I was able to buy them at a normal price close to the lower end margin and then sell it overnight for a K or 2 higher than the margin, or about 10 to 15% more. I tried it for about 3 to 4 days worth of overnight flips and it worked about half of the time, making some pretty decent profits. The Tsar heads were really different though, because the margin on them was often about 5 and 7k, that being 5k on the low and 7k on the high at the same time, which is an insane margin for an item traded so frequently. And it would stay like that for over a full day, and I was able to buy tons of them at the low end, but I was never able to sell more than a handful at the other end of the price, which sort of confused me, because it didn't seem to be that the margin shrunk as someone was undercutting me every time I logged in and had sold almost none and checked if I had been undercut, except for once or twice I never had been. I'm not entirely sure what happened there, but it was probably just bad luck with when I was checking and when other people were selling and buying, but it did feel kind of strange how about 4 or 5 times that I checked I was not undercut, yet not selling more than maybe 5 out of thousands. But enough of the Tsar heads mystery. If my attempt to explain it even made any sense, I suspect maybe not too much. I kept doing those same items as just mentioned, and here you can see me struggling to sell the dragonstone jewelry as the price is starting to drop. Eventually I finally did sell some of the Tsar heads for a decent price though. I think this was about 3 or 4 days after I started struggling with the heads originally. After I got rid of most of them for a price I was happy with, I didn't buy any more Tsar heads, instead I focused on the ensouled dragon heads for a bit. I decided to try abyssal heads too, as I wasn't able to sell the dragon heads for a bit. Not much of a success there either though. I was also starting to struggle to get rid of my lava dragon masks, and as you can see the dragonstone jewelry scrolls have now dropped significantly, and as I thought they were going to go back up, I was unfortunately buying a ton of them. They did not go back up. I ended up selling most of the lava dragon masks and charged scrolls for about the same or a bit less than what I bought them for, which was kind of a pain and a bit of a sad ending to this episode, but I didn't want to keep flipping while sitting on those items for even longer, as I've been postponing this episode for a bit too long now. I should have made this about a week, probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, and because of that I might actually have multiplied the cash stack more in this episode than in the previous one. I think I talked a bit more about this topic towards the end of episode 2. Either way, I don't think it'll happen again unless I postpone a video for even longer in the future and make absolute bank during that time. But I'll try not to.